mas yung level of preparation is there. Kasi it's harder to get things right. And I'm very obsessive-compulsive with things, you know, like a pencil, let's say, yung period, yung
It's
ano
like
ba yung
Mongol
the
pencils
color,
did
the
not look like that
brand.
in 1952.
Yeah. Minsan, if I'm not familiar with the era, parang you can make little mistakes. It already gives away na mali yung period mo. So it's more stressful for me.
Yeah, I have experienced watching a movie with a production designer who pointed out, bakit may botones? Wala pang botones nun.
Kunyari yung mga Filipiniana,
Yeah.
purely go period, wala kasi, puro ano yun, parlibre, aspili lang yun.
The world has gone bonkers. We now live in George Orwell's 1984. War is peace, ignorance is strength, and crazy is normal. How do you stay sane? Ed Lacson is an acclaimed production designer and director for the stage. Ed, when I was Googling you, one of the first things that turned up was an article which called you the wunderkind of Philippine theater. In my observation, you know, this is a generational honor, and the first time I encountered the term, you know, wunderkid or enfant terrible was for Anton Juan many years ago.
Many years ago.
So what's it like, you know, being...
I mean, it's flattering, of course. Any compliment naman, you take it, di ba, with a grain of salt. So, thank you for that. But, see, you work with directors like Loy Arcenas, you work with writers like Vera. I mean, these people really did wonderful work. Jose Estrella, Chris Miliado. So, ang hirap lang i-accept fully the term. But now it's gonna haunt me for the rest of my... it's gonna be...
Yeah, because when I Google you...
Yes, that's the first thing that came up.
But
Pero thank you, Total. I think Total wrote that article. So, thank you.
Yeah, I know Total. Can we offer you something to drink?
Yes, anything alcoholic.
Gamba, please.
Siya si Gamba.
Yes. I shall have my tea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, you do both, no? Production design and direction. Which is more stressful?
Production design.
Yeah, I would have thought na direction was more stressful because everything is your problem.
I think it has to do with control. Kasi when you're a director, you have more control of things. So, artistically, when you're designing lang for somebody else, I mean, of course, I've learned naman na how to take the director's hat off, no? But the knowledge is still there. So when I design, I kind of have the flow in mind, the blocking in mind, how it's gonna be used. And since you're dealing with another artist, so you have to, yung discussion, and then how are they gonna use your space. So minsan may back and forth. So minsan if you cannot understand or get exactly what they want, then it becomes more stressful. Kasi you really have to cater to the need of the production. The loyalty has to always go to the director, of course.
Right.
And when I'm working with myself as a director and a designer, I only have myself to argue with, my deadlines.
You can move your
Madali
deadlines
in my
a little,
head. But yun nga, I think it's a matter of the control of how do you, the artistic, kumbaga, control of things.
So how do you prepare for a play?
You read it.
And then
Which
notes,
is surprising.
notes.
Which is kind of surprising because there are some designers who don't even bother reading. There are, but which is
yes, I've heard
surprising,
of,
di ba?
yes, I've
No,
heard
but
of
that's
this.
the first thing you do. You read it, you get the gist of the story. Wala mo nang decision design factor into it. Just get it.
This is like
understand it.
reviewing a book without having read it, ha?
Ay, oh my God. Oh. So you read it, you get the gist of it, and then you read it for the second time with whatever hat on, as director, as a designer. And then you go through it thinking how you want to tell the story through the design or direction. So that's how I usually prepare. And then research, of course, kailangan you really have to have a good foundation in terms of research when you do work, especially for classical plays, diba? Before you can even break the rule, you need to at least understand.
Yeah, so with each play, it's a crash course in
Yes.
the history of the period.
Yes. Actually, I'm more comfortable with contemporary plays. I would do a classic, pero I'm always gonna be mas yung level of preparation is there. Kasi it's harder to get things right. And I'm very obsessive-compulsive with things, you know, like a pencil, let's say, yung period, yung
It's
ano
like
ba yung
Mongol
the
pencils did
color,
not
the
look like that
brand.
in 1952.
Yeah. Even kunyari coat, I mean, it changes every period eh. So pag minsan, if I'm not familiar with the era, parang you can make little mistakes or different hem or length of the sleeve or yung fit, yung shoulders. So it already gives away na mali yung period mo. So it's more stressful for me.
Yeah, I have experienced watching a movie with a production designer who pointed out, bakit may botones? Wala pang botones nun. So,
kunyari yung mga Filipiniana,
yeah.
if you really go period, wala kasi, puro yun, pardible, aspili lang yun eh.
Yes.
And if you don't fold it right, a good designer would actually be able to tell you. I mean, little things like that. I mean, you really have to research on it to get it right.
Right.
So coming up with a more contemporary take on a production is actually easier for me. A more abstract take on plays, on design, on the set.
Yeah. And there seems to be a lot of theater going on. There's always a play, and then a play opening every week, and by the time I hear about it, it's already closing.
Yeah.
Would you say that we're in the middle of a theater boom?
Yes. Before there were just like big companies, Tanghalang Pilipino, Repertory, PETA. Now there are a lot of new small companies, Red Turnip, Sandbox, Theater Titas. I mean, they come up with shows, Sipatlawin, and not only the number of companies, the number of theater venues that are being built. I think this is also a sign. And you need to fill it up, not only for actors, technicians, stage managers, theater managers, diba? So, it's a good sign for everybody.
So does this mean that you can make a living now as a theater professional?
I think so.
Exclusively?
I think so. Maybe not you won't be very rich, but
it's more
enough
possible.
to make a living. Yeah, I think it's possible. I was able to do it. I didn't have to take any other job outside of theater. I'm now a theater manager, so it's more a regular job, but it's still theater. So I think it's possible.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. And so, we all have this idea of preparations for a play being very hysterical, everyone being super melodramatic backstage, having nervous breakdowns, gano'n. So this common perception, is there any reality to that? Na, theater actors, they're all very external, very performative. So
not in my productions, but I've heard of moments like that outside. Iba, I'm a younger director, so iba rin yung process namin in the rehearsal space. There was a generation for sure na very authoritarian,
yes.
very, diba? But in our case, I think because we're younger, iba yung collaboration process namin. My rehearsals are generally relaxed.
It's not as high-strung.
No, I don't like that in rehearsals. Kasi, yes, people can function under high pressure, pero hindi hindi as creative yung flow. For me,
also,
I
it's
think,
not healthy, huh?
It's not sustainable. I mean, they work out of fear instead of out of joy and
yes.
out of freedom.
Yeah.
And when you have a rehearsal that's free, it's better for everyone, especially for the actors. Like auditions, I hate it when auditions are so stressful. The actor's stress level is similar to somebody who just experienced a car crash.
Oh dear.
Ganun yun when they come in. And
so they go home with PTSD, ganun.
Probably. Pero parang you need to make sure that the actors are relaxed and in a good environment for them to create a safe space, kumbaga. Parang if you keep shouting at them, if you keep diba? Parang everything they do is wrong.
Yeah.
Parang eventually they will stop creating and they will just follow what you say, and that will be a dead rehearsal for me.
So would you say that the days of the autocratic director are over?
I hope so. I really hope so. Yeah, going back, I mean, it's still not a democracy. Theater is never a democracy. There's always somebody will make a decision, whose artistic choices will be the priority. The loyalty always goes to the director. But yung that stories of hinahagis sa pader, naghahagis ng silya, I think it's no longer necessary for people to be driven to create.
Although, there are also hilarious stories of directors, of
Anecdotes.
actors throwing things at the audience, like si Tino, binato ng sapatos yung audience kasi nagkakagikikan.
That's true. They're funny stories,
yes.
Pero
if they happen to you,
2020 na, iba na rin ang natin eh. Yeah.
So how do you deal with stress in your work?
I tell this to my students, go for the solution. That's the best way you calm down. You first diagnose the problem. Very systematic, because I'm a stage manager first and foremost.
Yeah.
So I can't take that out of my system, which is a good training.
And for life in general, huh?
In life in general.
It makes you systematic.
Systematic and pragmatic.
Are you a checklist kind of person?
Yes.
Yeah,
so
checklists are great.
Figure out what the problem is and then what's the solution. Instead of screaming and cursing at the staff, go immediately to what do you need to do to solve the freaking problem. And then you'll calm down. For example, I have directors who get, if I'm a stage manager, no, directors who get annoyed when a certain actor didn't show up for a rehearsal. Of course, they're gonna get pissed because they planned out what they're supposed to do, no?
Yes.
But how do you pacify the director? You tell him the problem and then what's the solution. And then he somehow calms them down. Because a sensible director will calm down. A sensible director.
And there are some that are not. Yes. Have you ever lost your temper na you were so angry you had to leave and then cool
To
down?
take a break.
Then,
Yes, of course. I think that's a better way of solving. Kung talagang hindi mo na makontrol, take a break. To me, when schedule is not going well, or a schedule was proposed and people didn't follow the schedule, that's my number one cause of stress. Because I don't want to waste people's time, number one. You don't want actors...
but you know how everyone is late because of traffic? That happens.
There's always a way around it. I mean, I'm not as strict na parang if you come in 2 minutes
Penalty.
late, I get mad. Hindi naman. I mean, mas nasa-stress ako yung when you didn't tell us that you're not available for a particular day. And since I don't like wasting actors' time, parang we make sure that kung sinong available today, yun lang i-rehearse. So nobody's staying in the rehearsal for nothing. Diba? So it works both ways. It protects the director, the staff, and the actors.
Which do you prefer, straight plays or musicals?
Straight play pa din. I think I grew up doing straight plays, watching straight plays. Iba pa rin yung aesthetics ng musical. I still have a hard time accepting why somebody would burst into
song. Yes.
Exactly. Diba yun naman lagi yung problem with that Parang you accept the convention. You go in watching a musical theater knowing that people will sing.
Yes.
So you kind of put that lens on already. But really,
yeah, you have to be into it na parang why is he sing?
I mean, I've seen musicals na parang the music really flows into it.
Yes.
Operas actually are easier for me to digest.
Yeah, because there's songs throughout.
Everything is sung through, so the universe is clear. Yung musical theater for me, the convention is already set. That's why you come in with this suspension of disbelief, di ba?
Yes.
Pero for me, straight plays are really still more grounded. Hindi naman lahat ng straight play realistic, pero somehow, to me, may connection ako to. Especially when I'm rehearsing scenes. It's hard, but it's always so fulfilling to work on an actor scene. A really well-written script, like Stop Kiss. You work with 2 actors, 4 hours for a scene, and you really see how they develop the nuances. It's draining, but it's fulfilling.
Yeah, and you mentioned opera. Do you think, designing and directing opera is in your future?
I hope so. I hope so. Actually, I was asked to do an opera already. Hindi lang natuloy. But I think they're pushing through next year. Maybe. I don't know. Depending.
Oh, which one?
La Traviata. I think
la.
Viva Voce is planning to do it. I like it because La Traviata
Where would they
is a
stage it
smaller
here?
one. I don't know yet. We haven't really met. But we were supposed to do it last year. I like it kasi it's a smaller scale production compared to most of the operas. I mean, you can do it with less people. Saka mas intimate yung scenes.
Yeah, and even in the field of opera, things have changed. Like, because dati you'd have a 600-pound soprano pretending that she's dying of consumption. But now you can have a soprano who conceivably has consumption.
Yes, that's true.
Will we see a play written, designed, and staged by Ed Lacson? Do you write?
No.
Why not?
The one thing I don't like.
Why not?
Maybe I'm not good at.
You haven't tried it.
I'm bad in spelling. That's
Why?
one thing.
It's just spelling. You know who's bad at spelling? Quentin Tarantino. Apparently, he's a sucky speller,
really?
and he has written many screenplays. So
give me a script. I can probably tell you what's wrong with it or how it's gonna play out.
So
I
you
can
just
probably
do it
edit
backwards.
No, it's not that. I don't know why. Basta writing for me is so hard. I didn't continue my MA because they started giving us writing assignment, and I know I couldn't.
Maybe in the future, during your leisure time, you'll start scribbling something.
I never, devising maybe. A devised work pa. Pero yung to actually write a script in a traditional way.
What do you mean a devised work?
Para siyang improvisation until you come up with a product. Para siyang collaboration without a specific script to work on.
Well, a long-standing vogue in Philippine theater is taking the discography of a famous musical group
Jukebox musical.
and turning it into a play. So, are you gonna do one of those? Yeah?
I took it as to confront my biases. It's music of Ryan Cayabyab, and nobody has really done it yet, no? Parang wala pang jukebox musical na Ryan Cayabyab. So I like it because it's more of a children's play. Oh, that's another clue.
So you can guess na.
More of a almost catered to the kids. So I like that. It has a sense of fantasy in it. I mean, based on our initial meeting. So that's in 2021 pa naman. But
so
we're gonna work on it early.
Yeah, because it hasn't been written yet.
Yes, so we're gonna develop it, which is also an interesting thing because normally here, walang time to workshop a production. Parang by the time you close, dun pa lang actually ready yung show to open. But since economics and all that, so ang hirap mag-budget for workshop. But for this one, I think we're gonna be able to do workshops before the actual rehearsals for the full production.
Will you be involved in the development period, in the writing?
A friend of mine, LJ Del Doc, is gonna write it. And then we'll go through it. Once we have the first draft, we'll talk about it and then see. And then come up with a working script, which we will mount in a small maybe theater. And then see how the audience reacts, how it flows. And then after that, another process.
You will workshop it.
We will really workshop it.
So is this unusual to have such a long lead time?
Yes, because of economics. Kasi the budget you're gonna spend on a workshop is almost the same budget you're gonna spend on an actual production. But the workshop you really can't sell. In other countries, they do it, especially sa
and then they take the show on the road, to previews.
Try muna nila lahat with an audience. And yun yung importante, you have to try the material with an audience. And then you get a sense of how the material is working or not working. And then you fix those little things and then you try it again. And then when it's ready, you really go for the opening, for the premiere. So I'm fingers crossed, I'm hoping we will be able to actually do it here.
And so everyone says that Filipinos are natural performers, as in, give them the slightest excuse, they will sing, they will dance, they will act, they will laugh and cry in the same sentence. So, you agree that?
I think so, yeah.
Why do you think this happened? Why were we such performers and/or hams?
I don't know. I'm sure may mga nag-aral nito, anthropologists should have made research. Pero parang mahilig talaga, no?
Yeah, because that's the bane of my childhood na. As children, your parents will bring you to some family gathering and then they'll force you to sing, dance, recite a poem, whatever. Everyone is expected to get up there and perform.
Or in cameras. I mean, whenever there's a camera, the crowd will
you can't just go, everyone is hamming it up.
Exactly. Kahit na the news is telling a very sad story, people in the back will always...
when the cameras are there.
Celebrity rin, yung celebrity culture, I think.
Yes.
Yun yung actually mas naiisip ko. I think, yung celebrity culture natin, parang it's an easy way out.
Yes, it's the fastest way out of
So I think it's rooted with poverty rin, I guess.
Yeah, it's economic, no?
And status din when you're on TV and you're popular, somehow you're better than a doctor.
And so your life becomes easier, you get more work.
Or they have this feeling na pag naging artista ka, then you become better. But which is not always true.
Which goes back to the movies where everyone is very poor and miserable, and suddenly there's a singing contest, and before you know it,
mayaman na siya. Which is, yun naman ang ending, di ba? Mayaman.
Yeah.
We did a show in Melbourne, and what they say is may gutom kasi yung actors natin.
What do you mean by that?
I think it's so hard to create work here that you don't take for granted the opportunity to actually perform. So or an opportunity to be cast in a play or to direct a play.
I guess opportunity is so hard to come by here that when we see it, which accounts for Filipinos who migrate to the States, they have no problem with taking 3 full-time jobs at the same time.
Exactly. I can't put a word into it, pero may fire yung performances. May certain passion into it na talagang rooted from the gut, which is nice to have, di ba? Even when you're singing. Kahit hindi pa theater.
It seems like a small thing, but we will treat it like a matter of life and death.
And which makes for good performers. You somehow empathize with them.
Yeah, and this happens in any creative project, as in you have major plans, you have major design, you have done the technical rehearsals, and then worst case scenario, as in the play is already being performed, and then you say something wrong with the lights. What do you do?
Okay, I'm gonna put my SM hat on kasi performance. Kung before iba, I'll answer later. Pero yung for a performance, SM hat on is, again, diagnose the problem. And then, can you solve it in time? Kung may time kayo to fix the fixture, so let's say ang problem is busted yung ilaw. So, ang next course of action is, busted ang ilaw, may extra bulb ba? How long does it put on the bulb? Who's gonna put on the bulb? When can you put on the bulb? So, those are the chain of solutions that you need, di ba? And then, sige, I need 2 minutes. Do we have 2 minutes? Is it before intermission? Is it after intermission? So, once you get all of the parameters down, then you can figure out how to solve it. Kung patapos na yung show, wala ka na magagawa. Then you accept it. And then, ipopost after. Then you talk about it. Why did it happen? So, for that problem not to reoccur, if it's naman before, during tech rehearsal, before the play even opens, if you have, let's say, hindi nag-work yung lights, number one, of course, defer to the director. If the director is okay with it or not. Kasi again, it's an artistic endeavor eh. Baka gusto niya yung ganun yung quality, very stark, o gusto niya ba mas soft yung ilaw, di ba? Then if the director says, yeah, it's not okay, then you discuss it with your designer, co-designers, your lights designer especially. As a set designer kasi, you really have to work closely with your LD because the lights can make or break your set. Kahit gaano pa siya ka-textured, if it's lit in a wrong way, it's gonna make everything look bad. So you really have to have a good working relationship with your lights designer as well.
Because the first part of the illusion is the lighting.
Yeah.
Which suddenly made me think of the infamous Battle of Winterfell in Game of Thrones na yung bang nanonood tayo na sino naman namatay? Sino namatay? Because it's so dark.
It's so dark.
Of course, this is film. It's not like the stage. But didn't it make you feel like running and saying, it's not working?
You run to your remote and then adjust the TV setting. Sa theater nangyayari din yun. I mean, even as a director, sometimes I would ask, kasi darker lights are more dramatic. Diba? Pero there's a threshold na it's too dark na almost wala nang ilaw and you don't see the actor and it's dark enough that it has the right mood. I work with, let's say, Barbie and we always have that constant kami niyan, give or take. And then most of the time naman tama siya.
Okay.
So again, constant communication, collaboration. I think lahat naman nga may solution eh. I mean, you just have to be open. For a director, I think you just have to tell them immediately if it's not working, especially for tech. For actors, I have more time for actors. You have 2-3 months to rehearse. Right. But for tech, you have a week. So you cannot be undecisive about stuff. Lights designers hate it when the director couldn't figure out what they want. And I think that's a skill you learn. To be very decisive, to understand exactly what you want when you come into a scene. And at the same time, open enough that when a designer, a set designer, a lights designer, sound designer gives you something that is not in your head, the movie in your head about the play, mayroon ka pa ring openness to say, oh, that's a better idea.
If we were to recommend plays for people to watch, what would be your 10 essentials?
Essentials. One from Shakespeare, definitely, at least, or more.
Okay.
One or more from Shakespeare. One from the Greek classics, either a comedy or a tragedy, or one of each.
Yeah.
Antigone, yung Greek classics. One by Chekhov.
Yeah.
Always good for
Vanya.
actors. Arthur Miller, just because I like yung characters ng Miller. And
All My Sons.
Tennessee Williams.
Yeah.
Tennessee Williams for the heat. Somehow, lahat ng play niya, characters may init.
Yes.
More for local playwrights. Kay Glenn, kay Roddy.
Like, what recent local productions have you really enjoyed?
Nana Rosa.
I
think it's a very well written, unapologetic in terms of their politics, in terms of their stand on the matter, which is hard to do nowadays, diba?
Yes.
To have a really clear stand on an issue, and then to be able to do it in a creative way that's also visually stunning and simple at the same time.
How do you feel about local theater culture? Because earlier, in another episode, I was talking to my friend who's a film critic, and we agreed that one of the important things about for moviegoers is to have people to discuss the movie with afterwards, to compare their experiences. Is it the same for theater goers?
Yes, I think that's the ideal scenario. Whether you like it or not, to have a conversation after. I think yun yung mga may lingering effect eh. Diba? I think it's faster for theater kasi immediate.
Yeah.
And more scary because if it's bad, you would know. Your lobby will empty right after the show in 5 minutes.
And if people linger because they need to process the experience.
Or they couldn't even leave their seats.
Yes.
Diba? Because they just have to process. Kasi yun yung, I think yung advantage and power of theater, yung immediacy eh.
Yes, and also the fact that each performance is different.
Yes.
Sometimes in small ways, sometimes in major ways,
Yes.
but
Even an audience will affect how a show is, especially for comedies.
Yes.
Performing comedy
yeah,
on an
because
empty house. Oh my God,
you're
tragedy.
drawing your energy
Exactly.
from the
Oo,
audience.
totoo yun. I've entered rooms. I believe in that yung energy of the room. I've
Yeah.
entered room for my place. Alam mo agad when the audience is ripe. Alam mo, in the US, may mga house managers, the one who runs the auditorium, no?
Yeah.
They know when the audience is ripe. That's when they open house. They don't just let people in. Kasi dispersed yung energy. So they sense the room. Parang restaurants may ganyan din eh. I'm watching a documentary na parang he knows when the sound of the room is right. Somehow, tama yung tunog. And for me, may ganun din kami. May energy nung lobby. Alam mo na, ready na sila to watch. Then you let them in.
So these things
It's a
are not like
dead air,
according
dead
to a
energy.
schedule. You have
Wala.
to sense
May ganung mga house managers.
nuances. Yes. What's the toughest crowd? Of course,
Theater
it could be,
practitioners.
but more than say a group of high school students who have no intention of watching the play but were forced by their teacher to write a reaction paper. So
Well, if the play is good, doesn't matter. Of course, laging yung rowdy students. But to me, I'll take that any day compared to an empty house. I don't mind a rowdy audience.
in fact, yeah, a rowdy audience rather than yung the ones who are just sitting there na no reaction.
I mean, there's good and bad on both things. No?
Yeah.
Pero,
Yes.
okay na ako din nandun sila. It's a big deal already for me. I mean, it's so hard to get audience to come to theater. Whether they like the entire show or not, they will take something, or at least a percentage of that crowd will take away something. And we don't need all of them to watch theater for the rest of their lives constantly, di ba? Pero audience development, the more we have, the more chances na may madi-develop kang audience.
Wait, do you read your reviews?
Yes.
Have
Just
you
to see more for the negative things, just to make sure that
And you don't feel like hunting down the critics and
No.
slapping them, no?
sometimes I don't even agree with the good criticisms. I mean,
That's
the
a
theater
healthy
practitioners,
attitude, yes.
theater practitioners are a tougher crowd to please. Or ako personally, I think I'm harder on my own work than anyone else.
Well, I predict, if it hasn't already happened, that at some point film producers are going to come knocking and say, would you like to direct the movie? Would you like to direct the movie?
It's also a visual medium, I think. So I think it's not far from happening. Saka I had mass communication in college. So I had film subjects. We've done music videos and things like that. And I actually enjoyed it. It's just that mas na-develop yung skill ko in the theater industry first. Actually, easier for directors ang film. Kasi film is a director's medium. Theater is an actor's medium. I really believe.
Yeah, parang there are fewer ways in which it could go wrong, and then there's an editing process.
Exactly, di ba? And
yeah.
whatever an actor does in film, the director can just tweak it in a way and the context is already very different.
Yes.
In theater kasi, once the curtain opens, the director has no control. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I guess
You would
that's
think,
it.
diba?
If you're a control freak, theater is not for you.
Exactly. But there are control freaks.
Yeah.
I am one. Pero you learn to accept the fact that it's an actor's medium. That's why, for me, working out of fear doesn't work. Kasi you need to build trust eh. You need to, the actor needs to trust that what you want to happen is good for the show, and you need to trust the actor will deliver.
That whatever changes they're
Exactly.
doing in their approach
Kasi
will
if
be
mag-revolt yung
all for
actor
the
mo
good,
on
yeah.
stage, wala kang magagawa. You can scold at him, but the audience already saw it. So there's really, it's out of your hands.
So, we're called the Sanity Maintenance Program, and we ask everyone, how do you maintain your sanity in a world that seems to be growing more insane by the minute, and it's chaotic and unpredictable? So how do you maintain your sanity?
Ako, I would delete my Facebook app from time to time. That's one thing.
Yeah,
it's
it's
not petty
good
na,
to have
social media is really part of our
it's
life.
good
eh.
to
You
be
cannot-
alone with your own thoughts.
My pets.
Yes.
Pets are always nice. You come
Yes.
home and they're human. They don't care if you're a director, a designer, a good one or a bad one.
It's
You're
like,
just,
feed me.
Just
Yeah.
feed me,
Yes.
pet me.
What are the
Colleagues.
warning signs when you know na I am dangerously close to burning out?
Sa design, I've had that period na parang pare-pareho ng itsura.
Aha.
And then I realized, because I'm not going to museums, my Instagram feed is all people, not, diba, hindi art, and hindi pwedeng palabas lahat. Dapat may papasok ka na
Right.
creativity. I curate my Instagram feed to museums, to to artists, architecture, anything, any source of inspiration. Parang isa yun. That's a way to make social media work for me.
Yes.
Instead of the other way around. So
Yeah.
yung Facebook, I try to minimize. Yun.
Yeah, so, okay. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.